John B says, Adam said, this is my guess, and somehow Larry turns that into league sources. Okay, a couple things on Schefter. He has sources.
This is the hard part with these guys, man. It's the same thing we ran into with Rappaport, by the way. These guys give their opinions, and they weave in and out of their opinions, mixed in with sources. We make assumptions, which may or may not be right, and it's really hard. That's why I just wish these guys would separate. Tell me when you're gonna opine, and tell me when you have the sources. Can you at least separate it for me so that I know what to fully believe in and what not? That's the hard part for me.
It is, because they also get people who tell them things off the record, and to try to the same way that they get spun, right? They get spun, and it's like, hey, this is what I'll tell you for the record, and this is how we feel. And so that they get better coverage, or they give better coverage, teams spin them and give them little glimpses of their thinking through their commentary. And sometimes it's a text, but sometimes there's actual dialogue. So when Schefter comes out and says, this is my guess, people say, well, how do you know league sources? Well, this guy is plugged in, and the last thing that any of these guys want to do is be wrong. So if you say you have a source, then people immediately go to, well, who's telling you this? If you say, you know what, this is my sense of it, you could know. I mean, they're not. Let's just say this: Adam Schefter's not trying to say falsehoods, because he doesn't care about the 49ers. He doesn't really care about Trey Lance. He doesn't care about Brock Purdy. He doesn't care what any of you really think. He cares about what John Lynch thinks. He cares about what Kyle Shanahan thinks. He cares about what his sources have told him, and he cares about what they've told him on the record and off the record. So when he says, this is my guess, I would say you may want to go with their guesses as a little bit more sourced, because they're at least talking to somebody, and we are talking to nobody. And that's the one difference. And they're not invested. Like, I guarantee you, Ian Rappaport and Adam Shefter don't give a shit who starts at quarterback for the 49ers. They don't care. They're not fans. They're not vested. They have no vested interest. They're not anti-Trey. They're not pro-Brock. They're not anti-Darnold. They're not pro-Brandon Allen, right? They're just guys. So, but they want to be right, and they get paid based on how often they're right. So some things, if they get it like sourced, they're going to come strong with it like a report. But then when they go do Q&As on shows like McAfee and they get asked questions, now they're giving their sense of it. And their sense of it, I think, also has to be, there's their credibility is on the line as well, but it's not a report. So there's more latitude. But I still think at the end of the day that it behooves Rappaport and Schefter to be right and accurate, even when they're giving their opinions, not just reporting. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I don't see any motivation for them to do any misdirection unless they're being spun by teams that want misdirection. So then you're talking about something totally different. If the 49ers don't want the public to think how, if they don't want the public to think that they're anti-Trey Lance, then maybe they would spin something. Or if they don't want the public to think they're anti-Sam Darnold, maybe they would spin something. But that's high-level, multi-level stuff, and it's like, I got to take these guys somewhat at their word. I'm not saying it's a report, but when Schefter comes out today and says that Brock Purdy, if he's healthy, is the number one quarterback, well, that we already kind of knew. But to me, the news of the day is that Sam Darnold has the edge on the number 2 job. I've been at all the practices. I think that Sam Darnold hasn't shown me anything that says that he should have the edge on Trey Lance. But that's his take. So where did that come from?
Yeah, I tend to agree that their opinion is usually going to be based off of things that they've heard. And whether it's right or wrong, they're obviously not reporting. They've heard something, so they're going to form their opinion based off that. I think that's real. The problem that I have, though, is that you've got two of the best reporters in the business and Schefter and Ian Rappaport who seem to completely disagree on the Trey Lance situation, because Rappaport thought that Trey Lance was absolutely getting traded. And then he even doubled down and said, well, he's going to get traded before the season. Like, he came back after the draft and said that. So is what he's hearing different than what Schefter's hearing? Or is it strictly their opinions? Or is it maybe strictly Schefter's opinion and not Rappaport's, or vice versa? I don't know. That's what makes it really hard. So I do agree that these guys definitely hear things, and that their opinion is kind of a mixture of things that they hear plus their own spin on things. I just don't know where to draw the line. And especially when two guys that are high level in this business, this reporting business, seem to have different reads on the Trey Lance situation on whether he'll get traded or not. So
I get the sense that Shefter says that Darnold has the edge for the number 2 job, not because anybody's whispered to him, just because the 49ers signed him on the first day of free agency.
Yeah.
And he's kind of reading into that as they really like him. And if they really like him, they're going to go with him as number 2. But
I think a lot of people read into that way.
I think that might be wrong, though, Jesse, because I think the Niners have a much more, now maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Niners have a much more, like, I think they think that Brock is their 1 and the rest of it is wide open. That's how I look at it. I don't think.
Also, who do they have a bigger investment in, Sam Darnold or Trey Lance? Like, let's just be real about the situation. So you have a bigger investment in Trey Lance. So if you're strictly going off the investment that was put in, then Trey Lance would be the number 2. But they're obviously making it a competition, which, okay, that's great. But to read into it that, oh, Sam Darnold was signed immediately, that means he's the number 2, I'd pump the brakes on that one.
That is not an exaggeration. Do the math. It's all there for you. Ted, Adam Shefter does not care about clicks. All right? Come on. That is asinine. That is a crazy take. He gets paid to be right. He gets paid to give his opinions. He goes on the McAfee show. He's not saying this for clicks. That is just wild. That is crazy. And if he cared that much about clicks, there'd be so many other ways you could get clicks than this. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has more clicks than anybody cares to tell. I mean, the guy's got more clicks than everybody in the world. He's not making up stories and putting his credibility on the line for clicks. I saw that take on Twitter. I laughed at that, and I'm laughing at this. All right. The other take,